Yo, this is Terrence Gaines, aka Brother Tech,
And this is Nika Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
and you are listening to and are watching the snobOS show, the show where we talk all things Apple and then some. Welcome to episode 92 of the snobOS show. We want to thank y'all for joining. This is Terrence Gaines, aka Brother Tech, along with Nika Montford. And this is our weekly show where we talk all things Apple. This particular week, we're going to talk all things Apple event. And maybe if we have some time, put some other stuff in there with the show. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about this week as far as Apple news because of this week's event. Before I get to that, I definitely want to say thank you to all of our Patreons for their support. For as little as $5 a month, you get access to our pre-show, to where we talk about things you won't find on the regular show. You'll get access to our live show, so you can watch us as we tape the show. You'll get access to our Discord chat, to where you can join in the conversation in between the shows, give us ideas for what you want to talk about on the show, give us ideas for show titles, so on and so forth. So definitely show us some love. Without your support, we couldn't make all this video, couldn't all make this crisp video possible. So we definitely want to thank all of the Patreons for your continued support. Other than that, let's get right into the show. Like I said, this first segment is the Apple event lowdown. I've kind of renamed it to the Apple event lowdown, to where we talk all things Apple event. So if you have been sleeping under a rock, do not know that Apple has actually did their announcement for their Apple event for September. Normally, this is around the time when they would announce an iPhone, but due to the coronavirus, they've kind of pushed that back to a future event where we're thinking it's going to be early to mid-October. So instead of doing the iPhone event, they've given us a lot of stuff to talk about. They announced new Apple Watches, two versions, a high-end version, and then kind of a mid-tier version. They given us an iPad Air, which is better, if not equal to the current iPad Pro. They've given us some subscription services to where they're going to get even more money, and they've kind of bundled some stuff together. So we're going to get into all that. Let's start with the Apple Watch. So the first thing, probably the most popular thing that they announced, is the Apple Watch. This is Generation 6. One of the cool things that they added to the Apple Watch Series 6, and I'll go ahead and put that on the screen so you can kind of take a look at it. We're on the Apple website. Probably one of the first things you'll notice for the Apple Watch Series 6 is the blood oxygen sensor. This detects how much oxygen is in your blood, which could detect COVID-19. Of course, this is not FDA approved. They don't have all of the, patent pending, FDA approvals. But the cool thing about the EKG, the cool thing about the blood oxygen level detector is it can detect some of these real world issues that we're coming up with, specifically COVID-19. Of course, they can't make that substantiated claim, but some of the rumors have said, detecting the levels of oxygen in your blood could give you indication to a many host of health issues, primarily the flu, primarily, coronavirus. So I think that's something that's super timely that came out of the Apple Watch Series 6. And I'm just going to run through some of the other features. It has the Apple Watch Series 6 has a U1 chip that is spatial awareness. It can detect other devices nearby. So my watch can kind of sense my phone, can kind of sense my iPad, my MacBook, some of these other devices, which is good for the rumored AirTags, which is Apple's Tile competitor, to where you can put these small devices in your bag, attach them to your devices, and then through device to device connectivity, you can kind of see where your devices are to where throughout the world, right? So this UI chip that's in the Apple Watch adds to that rumor that they'll be launching some sort of AirTag compatibility. One of the things that's different between the Apple Watch, if you go back on the screen, is there's a product red color for the Apple Watch. They also have let me see if I can scroll down. They've got a blue color. They've got, in addition to the ceramic gold, the silver, and the space gray or the black versions. new watch faces. They've got a chronographic watch face. They've got emoji watch faces. They've got a tachometer that can detect your speed and your direction. One of the other features is family setup, to where if you have kids and they don't have an iPhone, but you want to give them an Apple Watch, you can pair their watch to your phone, and it gives you some features like being able to do location tracking, give the kids the ability to message. So you can actually on your watch message with your kids, do it via iMessage or FaceTime audio if you want to do an audio phone call. One of the cool things about the Apple Watch that they kind of launched alongside it was the solo loop. And I'll see if I can scroll down and find it here. Give me a second. Where are you? I know they had that in the Apple Watch. Let me see where that is. Hold on. Keep going. There we go. So it's got the product red case and then the blue case. They've got the space gray, the gold, and the silver. And then they've got this solo loop, which is basically one piece of rubber or braided yarn that doesn't have a clasp. It doesn't have a hook. It doesn't have a connection. It's all just one. Let me roll it down here. It's just one piece of fabric, and it comes in different sizes, and it's stretchable and breathable to where you can just fit it around on your wrist without any sort of clasp, without any sort of connections or hooks. So those are kind of like the basics for the Apple Watch Series 6. Starts at $399. Pre-orders are now. With availability on Friday, the 19th, which if you're listen to the podcast, or you're watching it today as it came out, you may be too late because it is already out. Like I said, pre-orders started on Tuesday when Apple did the initial event. So I guess I wanted to ask you, Nika, what's your feedback or your overview of the Apple Watch Series 6? And more importantly, have you ordered one yet? Or are you still waiting around?
I'm still waiting around. I'm not completely sold yet. I'm still waffling, thinking about it, because I'm not sure. Do I need it? I don't know. So I still haven't pulled the trigger yet. So I maybe, beat myself up, in a couple weeks when I decide, oh man, I should have went ahead and got it, and the ship time is like super far out. So I do think it's a good device, particularly if you are due for an upgrade. If you have like a series, if you're on like a Series 3 version, okay, then it's definitely I would say an upgrade. I currently have a Series 4, so I'm kind of like one version off of the new one. So that's why I'm not too pressed right now. Okay. And then I was looking on the site. I was shopping yesterday, trying to decide, and I like colors. I like things to match. So I was kind of waffling on the color. I couldn't really decide. So that was kind of an indication to me that I'm not super serious about it.
Gotcha. That's fair.
Yeah. So I was like, we'll see how I feel in a couple weeks. Or, I may just be, one of those people to order everything at one time. So when the phone comes out, I'll just, buy everything at one time.
Gotcha.
But right now, I'm just kind of lackadaisical. But you, on the other hand,
yes, I am on a Series 4 as well. I told myself I'm gonna start doing every other device, so I'll skip a year. So the Series 5, I skipped that year, so I pretty much knew sight unseen I was going to pre-order the Apple Watch Series 6. There wasn't too much that made me say, ooh, I have to have it. But again, like I said, I put myself on this every other cycle. So, it's time for me to upgrade from the Series 4. Like I said, none of this stuff, completely blew me off, blew me away rather. I didn't get the solo loop because when I went through the order process, they have a sizing chart, and they even give you the ability to print out and cut out the sizing chart. So you can kind of put the piece of paper around your arm to see which size solo loop you get, because it's not there's no clasp to it, but it's not one size fits all. I think there's like a small, medium, and large. I forget the actual sizes, but there are multiple sizes of the solo loop. So I just skipped that and just got the sport loop, which is kind of what I have now with the nylon with the Velcro. they've got that now for Series 6 in different colors. So I just went ahead and went with that. I did upgrade to the stainless steel over the aluminum version, which is a little bit more expensive. Reason why I did that again, because I am on a every other device cycle, and this is the current stainless steel black version, and very little scratches, if not any. And I don't have any sort of bulky case to go over top of it. I don't have one of those little mini screen protectors. So the stainless steel has done me right by holding up against scratches. So I went ahead and upgraded and got the, I think it's called it ceramic, not ceramic. They call it something black. I think it's space gray, something like that. But I got the stainless steel version of the Apple Watch Series 6. I thought
you said you got the ceramic. Did you get the ceramic or the stainless steel?
It's stainless steel. I think they call it. I have to look at it because there is a ceramic version, which is mad expensive. They've got steel and they've got aluminum. So I've got the stainless steel version. I'll have to go back and see what the actual metals are. But I think they're aluminum, stainless steel, and ceramic. But I think the name of the stainless.
Color.
Yeah, I think it had something with a C in it. But anyway, I got the middle version of the Apple Watch Series 6. And other than that, like I said, the spatial awareness chip, I'll be interested to see how that works. I'll be interested to see if my blood oxygen levels are anything outside of the norm. But again, like I said, none of that stuff really blew me away. I just knew this was my turn, so I just went ahead and did it.
It's called graphite.
Graphite. I kept saying ceramic. Jeez Louise. Graphite. So that's what I got.
But I think with the whole, O2 reading, it's similar to, I think when they were doing the EKG, it doesn't actually diagnose anything, but it does give you an indication that, hey, something may be off. So you may want to go and, get that checked out. So.
All right. So in addition to the Apple Watch Series 6, they did come out with a a mid-range version called the Apple Watch SE. And I'll put that on the screen. Again, it has most of the features of the Apple Watch Series 6, but is a cheaper alternative. Starts at $279 versus $399. Only comes in silver, gold, and space gray aluminum, so it doesn't have the higher end stainless steel or the higher end ceramic. You just get the aluminum style. It does not have the always on display, which differentiates it from the Apple Watch Series 6. Does not have the blood oxygen sensor like the Apple Watch Series 6. Doesn't have that spatial awareness UI chip. But it does have all the other features. Has the nice display, has all the different sport bands. As you can see, it's still compatible with the Solo Loop, either the rubber or the yarn, the braided yarn version. Has all the cool features. It does use the family setup to where, if you wanted to get this mid-range Apple Watch for a kid that doesn't have an iPhone, you can still use the family setup. Other than that, it's just a pretty good device. Like I said, it does differentiate from the Apple Watch Series 6. It doesn't have those super high-end features, but it does have all of the features that you would come to expect in a middle tier smartwatch. And like I said, it starts at $279 versus $399. So it's like almost $130 of a difference. So that may be something advantageous for people who really don't need that high end, but still want something nice. So I guess, would you consider getting the Apple Watch SE over the Apple Watch Series? No.
No, not for me. But I did have someone hit me up on, I think, Instagram, and they were like, man, I wish I had waited because I had just bought a Series 5. So I mean, it is definitely a market. And I think it's smart for Apple, especially, when they know that people may not have a whole lot of disposable income, but still want to, get something nice. You have holiday time coming up, people going back to school. And so I think it's a nice compromise for people who want to be in the smartwatch game and want a quality device from Apple. I definitely think it's a really nice device to get, especially for kids, because I mean, I wouldn't want to buy a kid a Series 6 because, I mean, kids be kidding.
Right,
So,
right, right.
so if you did want to get them something, or even, now that the Series 3 price has dropped to just under $200, that would be, an option as well. So,
Right. Speaking of which, like you mentioned, the Apple Watch Series 3 is still hanging around for $199. Does not have the family setup. Does not have the blood O2 sensor. Does not have any of the high-end chips. But for $299 to get somebody in the game of an Apple Watch is still, I think.
$199.
Well, I said what I say. I said
$299
for $199. Jeez Louise.
Yep,
For $199, that's not bad for a brand new Apple smartwatch. Right, to get you in the game. So that's still around. So you're looking at the Apple Watch Series 3 at $199. You're looking at the Apple Watch SE for $279, and then you're looking at the Apple Watch Series 6 starting at $399, and then that one climbing based on the colors, based on the type of metal that you want to get. But all of them have the GPS plus cellular. For the family setup, I just wanted to make a mention. You do have to have the cellular version, so you have to work through your carrier to get that set up in order to use that family setup to give it to a kid without an iPhone. They have to have some sort of cellular connectivity so you can track their location if that's something you're concerned about, or if you want to communicate with them via the Siri, voice, or you can actually do which I started to use more, actually writing on the screen of my Apple Watch. I do that when I want to do a quick yes or no or okay or call you back later, and I don't want to thumb through the pre-canned response list. I can just scribble okay.
So the scribble is actually, because I use scribble quite a bit, especially when I can't, if I'm not in a place where I could verbally say the message. So I found scribble to be fairly accurate when I'm writing. So
Yep, absolutely. So again, I can never get the walkie-talkie to work, so I guess the the scribble is the reasonable facsimile, especially because it works, and I still can't get that one. Maybe if we get everybody in the house a Series 6, then I can do the walkie-talkie, but that's not going to happen.
Yep, even get TJ a Series 6 too.
Yeah, right,
Don't
right.
leave nobody out.
Right. All right, so I guess moving on to, I think no, we got a couple other hardware, but getting into, I'm going to go over some subscription stuff. So one of the things probably that I was most excited about out of this whole Apple event was the announcement of their Fitness Plus. You've got this high-end Apple Watch that most people are using it for fitness, to work out, whether it be walking, running, jogging, cycling, treadmill. Now Apple, to compete against the likes of Peloton, I think even Nordic Track, some of the other ones, the Mirror, some of these other popular fitness workout services or products have this monthly subscription service. So Apple didn't want to be left out. They've come out with their Apple Fitness Plus. They're doing top workouts by top trainers. I don't think they're live like Peloton or some of the other ones. I didn't get the impression that these are going to be live workouts to where you can tune in to like a show and do your workouts, but it is going to be, top workouts by top trainers. Do you think of treadmill? You think of HIIT, which is high intensive. What is it? High
interval training.
High intensive interval training. I can never remember what the second I is. You've got dance. You got cycling. You got yoga. You've got all those different things, including, I'll make sure I want to put this in here, rowing. That's one of the things that I couldn't find in some of the earlier Apple Watch exercise routines, but now they've added that in the Apple Fitness Plus. So the cool thing about this is it works in conjunction with your Apple Watch. It works in conjunction with your iPhone, works in conjunction with your Apple TV, to where not only can you do the exercises or the routines on your Apple Watch or your iPhone, but it works in conjunction with your heart rate, with your what are some of the things that it works in conjunction with, like if if you need to step up the pace, like if you're working out and you need to step it up and it recognizes that your heart rate is kind of low, it'll give you some sort of indications that you need to step up your game to where you can kind of synchronize.
That maximum heart rate. I think it's based on like your height and weight, and that like gives you it allows you to burn the highest amount of calories if you're in that range. So it kind of gives you an indication if you're too high, you need to kind of back it down a little bit, or if you're too low, you need to kind of step it up. So
yep. So as you can see, like on the screen here, they've got, if you're watching on your iPad, they'll show you on the display what the time is, what your current heart rate is, and the amount of calories burned. So you can kind of have that always visually while you're watching it on an iPad, an iPhone, or your Apple TV.
So you don't have to look down at your watch, because a lot of us, if you're working out, you want to see what your heart rate is or how many calories you burn. You kind of look down. Now you can just look at the screen, and your metrics are on the screen that you're watching with whoever you're doing whatever particular exercise you're doing. So
exactly. One of the other cool things that it also does is synchronizes with Apple Music. One of the issues that Peloton is having is, they've got these cool live workouts, but maybe some of the music that they're playing may be copyrighted, may have some issues with that. Well, since you've already got Apple Music, which is one of the best streaming music players, you've got that integrated into there as well. You don't have to worry about any sort of music issues. You can play from your own playlist or some of the music that they're playing. Let's see, one of the other, you can use any gym equipment, right? So if you do have a bike, if you do have a treadmill, if you do have a rowing machine, you don't have to use the associated premium subscription services with those. If you choose, you can use, Apple Fitness Plus and synchronize it, because all of the activity is connected to the movements in your watch, not necessarily connected to the equipment.
And that's like one of the biggest selling points for Peloton is that you're on your bike and you have an instructor in your face kind of pushing you and kind of telling you what to do. But those Peloton bikes are really expensive, even though they're coming out with a mid-tier version now, just $9.99. Turn on your TV, turn your iPad, or turn your phone, and you get kind of the same experience without having to shell out all that money. And you get more than just a bike. It just you can use your own equipment regardless of whatever the activity is that you're doing.
Right. Or, no equipment at all, because like you said, they've got dance, they've got yoga. They've got, the cool down exercises, or you can just use dumbbells. So you don't necessarily need any equipment, like Nika mentioned, just $9.99 a month or $79.99 a year. Or if you buy an Apple Watch, you get 3 months free for Apple Fitness Plus, 3 month subscription. Now, this is not available right now. We've got to wait until sometime this fall is when they mentioned it. But once it's ready, like I said, if you bought an Apple Watch or if you have bundled it with the Apple One subscription service, you'll get that when it's announced. So I'm going to go ahead and roll right into the Apple One subscription service. That is Apple's bundled together services, to where, according to them, you save some money by bundling these services versus just doing them individual. So you think of iCloud storage, you think of Apple Music, you think of Apple Arcade, you think of Apple News Plus. Buying those separately, you'll start to add up the tab in a minute, versus the Apple One services. They bundle all that together for you. So I'm just going to quickly go through some of the tiers that you can put on the screen, all the different subscription services in a different tier. So I'll just go over the 3 tiers, right? So actually, let me see if I can find it. Here we go. All right. So for the individual Apple One subscription service for $14.95 a month, you get Apple Music, you get Apple TV Plus, you get Apple Arcade, and you get 50 gigs of iCloud storage at $14.95 a month. For the family tier, for $19.95 a month, you get all of that's included in the individual, but you get 200 gigs of iCloud storage. And then for the Premier, you get all of that included, but you get 2 terabytes of iCloud storage. You get Apple News Plus, which is their magazine subscription service on top of the free, just regular Apple News. And you get to what we just talked about. You get the Apple Fitness Plus coming in late 2020. So for that $30 a month, You get all of the Apple subscription services. You get 2 terabytes of iCloud storage. You get the new Apple Fitness Plus, and you get to share it with 5 other people for a total of 6. You and 5 other family members. So you can do the family sharing to where everybody gets access to the 2 terabytes. Everybody gets Fitness Plus, News Plus, all the different tiers. So that is, like I said, that's something interesting for me specifically because I'm part of a 5-6 person family to where we all get access to all the different features, including, Fitness Plus, which is a new thing that they announced. But I guess I wanted to ask you as an individual, how does this work for you, just being an individual and then still having to kind of piecemeal it together? Because I've noticed in the individual one, they don't get Apple Fitness Plus, but you do get some of the other ones. So I guess I want to ask you, what are you currently subscribed to? And is this something that's advantageous for you to look at?
Apple One really isn't going to be that beneficial for me because the biggest thing of the services that they've come out with that I'm most interested in is the Fitness Plus.
Okay.
I already have the extra cloud storage. So that doesn't. Now, if you could customize it and say in the individual, I want Fitness Plus, the iCloud storage, and, music, if I could, kind of swap out because I'm not going to really use the arcade. I don't really too much care about TV Plus. So if I could say, okay, of the, 1, 2, 3, 4 things that you have there listed, well, I'll say 3. I'll take out the storage because that seems to be, the staple of the packages.
Right.
So if I could choose the 3 services that I wanted, then that would be more advantageous for me and not to just go with the music, TV Plus, and arcade because of those 3 things, I'm not really likely to use them that much.
So let's do the math, right? So let's say right now you have iCloud storage, and I'm assuming, do you know what tier you have right now?
I don't know what tier I have.
So I think $2 a month gets you 50 gigs of iCloud storage. For $2 or $3, you get 200 gigs, right? So you're looking at about let's just say $2 for iCloud storage. You have Apple Music, or do you use Spotify?
I use Spotify.
Okay. So Apple Music, I think, is $10 a month. Let's just say if you were into that, right? And then let's just say when Apple Fitness Plus. So let's just yeah. So then if you did Apple Fitness Plus, that's $10 a month. So you're already looking at $12 a month for iCloud storage and just Fitness Plus. If you're looking at this individual one, you still have to pay for Fitness Plus. So yeah, never mind.
I still have to pay for Fitness Plus,
Yeah.
And that's really the kind of the anchor.
Yeah.
That would be the anchor for me for Apple One.
Right.
Especially like I said, since I have Spotify Premium. And I was already a Spotify user, but I have AT&T.
Right.
And so, the Spotify Premium is included in my AT&T.
Right.
Thing. So it's not like I'm really paying anything extra for that. So the Apple One really isn't beneficial for me.
Yeah. Now for me, I'll just do my math, right? So I already do the family sharing, which is $15 a month. That gives me Apple TV Plus. It gives me the 2 terabytes of iCloud storage, and it gives me I do Apple Music. Apple Music, iCloud storage, and Apple TV Plus. And that's what I'm at right now. To where if I had to tack on Apple Fitness Plus, that's going to run me well over the $29.95 a month. So it's like I might as well just go to the premier version of $30 a month. That gives me the 2 terabytes. That gives me the Apple Fitness Plus, and it gives me News Plus. We'll see if I'm interested in that or not. I've been able to do so far without it. But if it's included, I might as well use it.
Use it.
Right. And that's going to save me than doing it all separately. Right. So for a family, or if you've got multiple people, these Apple One subscription tiers work well. They'll have to see how it works for an individual, because you, like I said, you just, we just did the math and said this is not advantageous to you. I've seen other people on Twitter say, why can't they put Apple Fitness Plus in with the individual one and then take out some of these other things? Because like you mentioned, that's the new hot thing. That's probably going to be the anchor for many people. They need to figure out how to loop that into some of these Apple One services. But again, we'll see. I'm pretty sure they'll get a lot of feedback. I'm pretty sure they may start to add some of those things back in as, supply and demand.
Yeah, and they may, I'm assuming whatever their market research is, that's how they came up with these three things to put into the individual. But I think once people start using it and they start getting the feedback, they may, announce, we're being flexible. You can choose up to 3 services to go into your individual package. So,
right.
That could come. And if it does, then I would definitely be on board for that. So,
or as I can see, the things that are covered across the board is the Apple Arcade. So maybe this is Apple's ploy at saying,
to get more people to
look
use
at all
Apple Arcade.
Look at all these people signed up for Apple Arcade. So you developers, it behooves you to make better games because all of these people have already paid for the service, when in actuality we're just doing that so we can get to the iCloud, we can get to the Apple Fitness, so we can get to the Apple Music. So, that's the thing for these bundles, which is no different than, back in the day when you were trying to decide between cutting the cord on with your cable versus doing the internet streaming. The appeal to the internet streaming was, well, I can just only watch what I want to watch. Well, fast forward to today, that ain't really the case, because when I got to pay for YouTube TV, I also got to get a bunch of this other stuff. So these bundles, the reason why they do them is because they want to show that people are paying for things across the board, when in actuality we may or may not be using it. But time will tell on this Apple One subscription service. So definitely, if you're interested in that, let us know if that's something, and if the fitness not being in the individual Apple One subscription is something that you are, kind of upset about, right? All right. So that is it for the subscription services. They did announce a couple more. They announced some additional hardware, which is the new iPad Air. Let me go ahead and put that up on the screen for our people watching. They have announced a new iPad Air, and it looks in design and it looks in feature wise almost the same, if not better, than the current iPad Pro. So let me go ahead and go through some of these features for the iPad Air. It has a 10.9-inch display. The iPad Pro, the current version, has an 11-inch screen for the smaller screen. It's got new colors for the iPad Air. You can see, I put it up on the screen. They've got a sky blue. They've got a green color. They've got rose gold. And in addition to the silver and the space gray that we're used to. It's got the A14 Bionic chip, which is the most current chip you can get in a mobile device from Apple, which is actually better than the chip in the current iPad Pro. One of the cool things about the Apple iPad Air is it has Touch ID, which has come back to the home button. So let me see if I can go through and find that image that they highlight that. Give me a second here. For all my people watching, for the people listening, just pretend like I'm doing something. Let me go back and find that where they actually announced that. Well, but while I do that, they've actually added Touch ID back to the home button on the iPad Air. So I just wanted to highlight that to where it's super thin. It's not like the home button to where it's round. You think of the traditional home button on an iPad and you'll be able to press or swipe your finger. I don't remember them explaining how you do it. They just mentioned
they just said that the reader is just on that, because when you think of the home button, you think of circular and you think of kind of like your fingertip.
Right.
But it's more of a curved rectangle.
Right.
And it's at the very top. If you think about the iPad Pro, how it's kind of like that rectangular and it's curved, it has that same kind of look and feel, and it's just on the very top of of the iPad Air, and you just can put your finger on it, and it reads your print.
Okay, so you don't have to swipe or anything, or you don't have to take your finger and roll it across the button. You just
Well, based on what they were saying, it was just kind of like you just kind of tap
okay. All
on
right.
top of the button.
All right, so Touch ID is back on the iPad. There's no Face ID on the iPad Air. There is Face ID on the iPad Pro, but there currently isn't Touch ID on the iPad Pro. So you'll have to decide which one you like better. Do you like Touch ID or do you like Face ID? I'll admit, on my iPad Pro, most of the time I'm holding it with two hands and my thumb is covering up Touch ID. So I have to remember to remove my thumb so it can see my face. So I don't know. Maybe the Touch ID may be something advantageous for me, right?
Which biometric do you prefer is what it'll boil down to.
Exactly.
Your face or your finger?
Exactly. So the iPad Air has Apple Pencil, the second generation Apple Pencil support. It also is compatible with the Magic Keyboard and the Smart Folio, the new, I think it's like $300 device that comes that Apple recently come out with that's compatible with the iPad Pro. Now it's compatible with the iPad Air. It has USB-C charging like the iPad Pro. It has a 12 megapixel rear camera and a 7 megapixel FaceTime camera like the iPad Pro. The only thing the iPad Air does not have is the LiDAR camera, which the second generation iPad Pro does have. The iPad Air has Wi-Fi 6 compatibility, which is, I think, even more current than what the current iPad Pro has. And it starts at $599, which compared to the iPad Pro, I think the iPad Pro starts at $799, right? So I guess the question
That's a pretty big gap.
Right. So I guess the question is the iPad Air better than the iPad Pro, or is there still a market for an iPad Pro that has the Face ID, that has the LiDAR camera, that has the high refresh rate? I think it's 120 hertz refresh rate on the iPad Pro screen. Are those features enough for you to stick with the iPad Pro? Or if you're in the market for a mid to high end iPad, do you go with the iPad Air and just wait and see what happens with the iPad, or just be happy with what you got and don't worry about if Apple does an upgrade to the iPad Pro?
Well, I'm thinking based on what's available now, honestly, besides the camera, the iPad Air is, I mean, you're less $200 cheaper starting.
Right.
And it's almost, I mean, it's a pretty close apples to apples type of deal. So, and I know that they just did a refresh of the iPad Pro at the beginning of the year. So it's really strange to me, and we talked about it on the Daily Tech News show that we were on yesterday, that I don't know what the really big incentive is based on the iPad Air of the iPad Pro, other than, you just have the option for 11 inch or a 12.9 inch screen, because I mean, they're pretty comparable, honestly.
Right.
So, and the price point is significantly cheaper on the Air, so, and it's thinner, so. Right.
So I guess some of the main, so let's see if, let me make sure before I start putting stuff out there. Let me make sure I read it. So I put on the screen for those watching, like, to compare the different models. So I've got the iPad Pro 12.9 inch, which I guess people will get the bigger one, but there is an 11 inch iPad Pro as well. Or maybe not. Maybe they will cycle out the 11 inch iPad Pro and only offer the 12.9. And then if you want a smaller one, you got to go down to the iPad Air. Maybe that's it. Maybe they'll do that, right? Because I have the 11 inch iPad Pro. Maybe if I want to continue getting that, I may have to drop down to the iPad Air. So all that to say,
that may be what they're doing. Maybe when they announce the next iPad Pro, they'll completely phase out the 11 inch, and you'll have to go with the Air if you want the smaller screen.
Right. So all that to say, this compare screen on Apple's website compares the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, the iPad Air that we just talked about, and the updated iPad regular. I call it the iPad regular, which is the 8th generation iPad. But specifically between the iPad Air and the iPad Pro, 12.9-inch, of course, the screen is bigger. You get up to 1 terabyte of storage on the iPad Pro. You only get up to 256 gigs of storage on the iPad Air. You get a 12 megapixel and a 10 megapixel ultra wide camera and the LiDAR with the iPad Pro, when you only get one 12 megapixel wide camera for the iPad Air. You both get USB-C. Both have Wi-Fi, of course, with the capacity for the iPad 12.9 iPad Pro to give a terabyte. Other than that, both of them are liquid retina display. Again, I mentioned the iPad Pro has that high refresh rate that's going to give you faster, seamless switches when you're swiping between screens. When there's some high-end action on the video that you're watching, that's going to come through a little bit clearer. The iPad Air does have the A14 chip versus the iPad Pro has the A12 chip. I guess negligible differentiation. I mean, I'm not a geek like that. I don't do any sort of Geekbench testing or anything like that, so I'll just assume that the A14 is better. And both of them have iPad Pencil. Both of them have the Magic Keyboard and the Smart Folio and all that good stuff. So I guess the question is, again, that'll be the question we have to ask. Which one do you get? Do you go get the iPad Air, which is $200 less, that has some smaller differentiations, or do you get the 12.9-inch iPad Pro with that big boy screen?
I think it honestly is just going to boil down to what you're going to use it for.
Right.
It's probably going to be the biggest key differentiator based on the versions that we have now. You know, we don't know what's coming down the line for iPad Pro, but based on, let's say, the iPad Pro, the big screen, the iPad Air, and the iPad 8th generation, just based on those, between, there's some differences, but there are some subtle differences between the Air and the Pro. So I think it just really depends on what you're going to use it for. Is I think what is going to be people's really determining factor if money is not, a concern. Right. Okay. If money price is one of the things that you're thinking about, then you may lean more towards the iPad Air because it does start $200 less than the iPad Pro. So I think, but knowing that I already have an iPad Pro, so I know how great a device it is, and just seeing what they presented for the iPad Air, they're both really great devices. So either way, you can't go wrong, honestly. So it just depends on what you're going to use it for. All right.
And then the last thing that Apple announced was a refresh/upgrade to the 8th generation iPad regular. Basically, it's got the same look, the same design, has the A12 Bionic chip, which is support for the first generation iPad Pencil and a smart keyboard that you're used to. Let's see, it has, just the basic look as the regular iPad. It does have the functionality of iOS 14, which we'll get into a little bit later, that with the first generation Apple Pencil, you can do the scribble in the search box and it'll actually convert the scribble to text, which comes in with the iPad. Has a lightning cable, does not have USB-C on the regular iPad. And that's pretty much it, with a price of $329. So they've kind of lowered the price for the regular generation, the 8th generation iPad regular, but it does have the functionality, like I mentioned, to with Apple Arcade and the ability to connect to a PlayStation or Xbox controller if you use your iPad for gaming. So that's pretty much it for the iPad. Like I said, they've refreshed. It adds a couple new features, dropped the price down to $329. I think it's $299 for the education version. So that's pretty much it for all of the lineup, everything that Apple announced at the Apple event. One of the things that they did mention was, oh yeah, by the way, iOS 14 will be available tomorrow and is starting to roll in today. I was actually in the iOS 14 public beta, so I got my iOS 14 regular updates today, so I was able to get it updated on my phone and my watch. So today Apple rolled out iOS 14, they rolled out iPad OS 14, they rolled out watchOS 7, and they rolled out tvOS 14. So I kind of want to just do a real quick, super fast rundown of all of the features, the main features for those different OSs. So for those who are watching, I'm going off of this CNN business story that kind of looped together all of the main features for iOS 14, right? So one of the main things you'll notice are the widgets. So you can add those widgets onto your home screen that'll give you more information versus just using the regular app icon. You can add things like the calendar to your home screen. You can add images, photos to your home screen. You can add the weather. You can add stocks. You can add all of those Apple-centric widgets to your home screen. That gives you more information at a glance. I'll be interested to see what Apple offers third-party developers for widgets. You know, maybe like we mentioned earlier, like Spotify. You know, some of the password generators, maybe third-party mail and calendar events, calendar apps will be added as widgets. Right now, they're just a general Apple-centric widgets, but I'm pretty sure more to come, right? So in addition to that, you get, I'll just go through the list via the website. You get mini apps. I think this is what they call the app clips, to where if you don't have an app installed on your phone and you're going to do some sort of function, like for instance, if you wanted to rent a scooter, like those electric scooters, and you don't have that particular scooter app on your phone, you can bring your phone close to the device and it'll pop up this app clip that'll give you the ability to utilize that app without actually having it installed on your device. So that's one of the main things for iOS 14. One of the things that upgraded was messages, to where you can actually pin your favorite messages to the top of your iPhone or iPad, to where you'll have quick access to those. You can do inline messages, so where if you're a part of a group chat and you need to respond to just one person, you can actually reply to them directly. Or you can use the Twitter lingo. You can @ people in a specific message. So if you just say, hey, I'm going to the store, Alondra, do you want something? You can @ her name, and it'll actually highlight her to where it'll ping her to where she needs to pay attention to the message because you spoke out to that person directly. Let's see, you can has a digital car keys in iOS 14. Now, right now, the only vehicle to where you can use your phone as a actual car key is the 2020 BMW X5 series. So if you're on order for a 2021 BMW 5 Series, you will be able to use your you'll be able to use your iPhone as your car keys. One of the cool features, AirPods. This is one of the things that I actually tried out today. Was there's an AirPods update to where it allows you to use spatial audio. So instead of just being stereo sound in the AirPods, you can actually do spatial audio to where you'll get the appearance of having sound in the front and the back, coming above you and actually below you. So they've got a pretty cool animation to where the way you normally, connect your AirPods, you'll actually see a little logo under the AirPods in the control center that gives you the ability to turn on spatial audio. So it's pretty cool. It's actually does add those extra dimensions you can actually tell in the AirPods. So of course you have to have the AirPods to do that. But if you do, iOS 14 gives you that. One of the cool things, you can do picture in picture on a video. So if you're watching like Apple TV Plus and you want to minimize that screen so you can look up a contact, or you can send a quick message, you can actually minimize the video screen and move it around to different parts of your iPhone or your iPad to where you can actually do those additional functions. Let's see, incoming calls and Siri don't take up your whole screen. So like if somebody's calling you while you're in the middle of sending a text message or looking something up, the whole call doesn't take the entire screen. It just takes up a smaller block at the top of the screen. Same thing with Siri. When you invoke Siri, she doesn't take up the whole screen. She just shows up as a tiny blob. I call it a blob.
Yeah,
at the
the little
bottom.
just like you see like the voice inflections type of what is it like the spectrum kind of
Yeah. I was trying to find it
thing
on
about.
it. Yeah, I couldn't find it, but it doesn't take up the whole screen. And then when you actually do a search, she doesn't show the whole response or the search result in the whole screen. It just takes up the same small block as you would an incoming call. So those are the features that I kind of looked at the most on iOS 14. Some of the other things that are included in iOS 14 is the app library. So what it does is it puts all of your apps in libraries according to the different categories for those different apps, and then you can kind of move them in and out to your to your liking. Some of the other features are a bunch of privacy features. So the ability for the phone to let you know if you're going to a website that's been breached, or you have a password on a website that's recently been breached. Little amber or green indicators will pop up on your iPhone or iPad to let you know that you or a third-party app is currently using the camera or using your microphone to record you. So it kind of gives you those visual indicators to let you know, hey, I'm being recorded, or I'm being recorded via audio or video. One of the other features, security features, is approximate location. Like some of the apps, some of the services require your location. So instead of giving it your exact location, it'll just give you an approximate. Well, not you specifically. It'll give the other service or the third-party app your approximate location, so it can't pinpoint you directly. So those are just some of the features. There's like a whole host of privacy features specifically in iOS 14, but I just wanted to highlight some of those as the highlights. So were you able to get iOS 14 yet? I saw it was available today, but it didn't come out at midnight. So it's kind of staggered throughout the day.
Yeah, so when I saw that, I saw tweets that it was available, and I went and checked, and it wasn't available to me this morning, and so I wasn't able to install it. But before we recorded the show, I saw it pop up, and I have my devices set to automatically install, so I'll just let it do its thing tonight. So
Yeah. So probably the first thing people will do the most is play with the widgets. They'll play with the app library. They'll play with the messages. They'll poke around with the video. The video comes in handy, but it sometimes does it automatically. But sometimes when I just want to, like for instance in YouTube, for example, it'll play full screen, but maybe I just want it in a smaller screen, but I don't want it in the picture-in-picture. It kind of can't decide which one it wants to do. Does it want to minimize it to the regular screen, or does it want to do that picture-in-picture? So you kind of got to mess around with that. So, but people will kind of mess around with that feature the most.
And I think that will come in handy. We'll talk about VERZUZ later, but a lot of people, namely me, I like to watch the VERZUZ, but I also like to be on Twitter and, tweet while I'm watching it. So, that'll kind of give you a little more flexibility so you can still see the actual VERZUZ and not have to have multiple devices running to be able to watch the VERZUZ and, interact on social media, which is,
that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll definitely come in handy if you're watching VERZUZ like on Apple Music. I don't know if it'll work on Instagram, but if you're watching VERZUZ on Apple Music, you can definitely use that picture-in-picture to actually tweet or be on Facebook or be on Instagram while you're actually watching the VERZUZ. So yeah, definitely come in handy for that. Moving on to iPad OS 14. The only things that I wanted to identify with iPad OS 14 was to scribble the text in search. So if you have an Apple Pencil, you can actually scribble with the Apple Pencil in the search bar. Like if you're searching through Notes or if you're searching through Safari and you want to scribble in the search bar, it'll actually convert the scribble to text, and then you can use that to actually do your searches. And then the other thing in iPad OS 14 is a shape recognition. So if you're on a note and you're actually drawing some designs, it'll recognize a square, a triangle, a circle, so on and so forth, and actually convert those to actually a digital shape versus your janky handwriting, right? So those are like the only kind of two that kind of jumped out at me for iPad OS 14. It'll be interesting to see how other apps use the extra screen real estate for like menus, because a lot of the apps, they're starting to put fly out menus. So we'll see how that works in iPadOS 14. But going to watchOS 7, some of the major features for watchOS 7 is sleep tracking natively. You don't have to have a third-party app for that. The hand washing feature, I use it every day, all day. It's almost like you can't not do it, right? When you start washing your hands, your watch goes off and says, "Hey, I've recognized you washing your hands," and it does a little countdown. And it's almost like you can't
stop before the countdown.
You can't stop before the countdown because you feel dirty. So I actually find myself washing my hands longer until I hear the indication that it's done, and then I rinse off and go on about my business. Another cool thing about the hand washing feature is you can set it to where you allow it to where if you're out and about and you come home, it can recognize you're at home and say, "Hey, I've noticed that you come in the house. You may want to wash your hands now." And then I find myself stopping what I'm doing, going in the kitchen or going in the bathroom and actually washing my hands. So that feature comes in handy, right? In addition to that, just new watch faces. I kind of mentioned it before. And when I talked about Apple Watch earlier, to where you've got the emoji face watches, you've got extra chronographic, you got tachometer face watch faces. And then in addition to that, you got the family setup for watchOS 7. So if you've got a young kid who has a watch, they don't have a phone, you got to use watchOS 7. And then you can actually set that up on your device and kind of track your kids' activities, so on and so forth, with the watchOS 7 and family setup. So other than that, just keep on going real fast. tvOS 14 was also announced. Some of the main features that is 4K YouTube. So if you're using the YouTube app and you do have a 4K television and you've got the 4K Apple TV, you've got all those combined. If there's a 4K YouTube video that actually comes in via Apple TV, picture-in-picture on Apple TV as well. So if you're watching YouTube, if you're watching Apple TV or any other streaming service, you can actually move that to picture-in-picture to where you can do other things with the Apple TV, like, for instance, HomeKit integration. So if you're watching a YouTube or a streaming service video, somebody knocks on the door or the HomeKit cameras detect motion, you can actually now pull that up on Apple TV and then use picture-in-picture while you're checking to see who's at the front door, while you're turning on and off lights, while you're checking sensors, so on and so forth. So that is pretty much the rundown for all the things that Apple announced with iOS 14. Like I mentioned, I saw on the internet people were either they were complaining like people do when they're waiting on like people do when they're waiting on Apple devices, or if there was a legit issue as to why iOS 14 couldn't come out like the stroke of midnight on this morning, versus I think people were waiting on up until like 2 or 3 o'clock Eastern. And I saw some places where they actually officially said iOS 14 will be available like 2 o'clock Eastern time. So I'm curious if that was actual, like you mentioned earlier, people thought iOS 14 was supposed to come out this coming Friday, but actually came out today. So I'm wondering if
you just can't make people happy. You get it 2 days early. It's still too late. Why did it come out at midnight? You get it a whole 48 hours early, 72 hours early.
Right. But I think at the time of us recording this, which is actually on a Wednesday, so if you're listening to us, you're probably listening to us Friday, but at the time we were recording it, there were some people who still couldn't get iOS 14. So I'm curious to know if that was by design or because they had some hiccups and they had to push the date back, right? All right, so I think that is it for all things Apple, which took up all the time. I think we're well into an hour of this show, and we just did the lowdown where we talk all things Apple. But we do have a couple of things for Second String where we talk all things tech in general. So we actually, the PS5 actually announced their launch date and their prices. If we go to The Verge, there's a story on The Verge where they talk about some of the details. But basically, November 12th is the date for PS5, and the price is actually $499, which I think is on par with the Xbox.
I think so.
Yeah. So I'll just read this actual story from The Verge. The pricing puts Sony squarely up against Microsoft's next-gen consoles, with the company set to release the entry-level Xbox Series S at $299, and then the higher-end Series X for $499. So PlayStation comes right on par with the high-end version of the Series X for $499, and then they'll do the same thing with a digital version at $399, which is $100 more than Microsoft's digital version, right? But so it'll be interesting to see the difference, because I've heard that the Series S Microsoft Xbox is going to have some compatibility issues with some of the games. So we'll see if that's the case with the PlayStation 5. It sounds like it won't. It sounds like the only difference between the PlayStation 5 for $399 and the one at $499 is a digital. It'd be digital only, versus the high end one you'll be able to put the Blu-ray discs in. But we'll see if they have some of the same game compatibility issues that developers are reporting that are going to be the issues with the Xbox Series S versus the Series X. But all that to say, November 12th is the date. I think the Apple announcement and Xbox finally forced PlayStation's hands to where they actually had to announce a date and a price. So
right, and it looks like the pre-orders start tomorrow at selected retailers for the PlayStation 5.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, so I think it'll launch. I think it'll be available in November 12th. But in the article from The Verge, which we'll include in the show notes, it has a link to the select retailers that will start the pre-orders for September 17th. And I think we mentioned this last week, where we were expecting a PlayStation announcement, because the girls are watching y'all's pockets, because they are staking their claim on your pockets, because it's so much coming out around holiday time.
Right.
You got the gaming consoles, you got phones, you got tablets, you got probably laptops and Apple Watches. So everybody wants to stake their claim on your money, on your coins, so that they can say, you know what, let me go ahead and put my things out there so I can corner, my market of people, so they won't give too much to Apple or Microsoft. Then you save a little room for me. So
right,
Yeah,
I'm saying then you add that all in with the coronavirus and China and slow demand and things not shipping as fast. That's one of the reasons.
Limited supply.
Right, which is why the iPhone couldn't be announced earlier this week. So add all that up. They're, like you said, they're trying to get in the front of your minds as well. So Apple, Sony had to announce something. So that's what you got. So definitely we put the link in the show notes. But yep, the pre-orders will start on the 17th, which is on, if you're listening to this on Friday, they started yesterday on the 17th.
We're a day late on the 17th, September 17th.
Yep. So if that was one of the things on your list, you might want to go ahead and plunk down, because we were on the DTNS show, and they also mentioned that Sony was having some issues with their own supply and demand, to where they've had to adjust the amounts of different devices that are going to be launched. So all that to say, if you were hell bent on getting a PlayStation 5, you may want to put down your pre-orders as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see what else we got. So you also said the PlayStation Plus collection will let you play a bunch of PlayStation 4 classics on a PS5 at launch. So this is kind of similar to, I think Microsoft has a Xbox, I forget their service that they call it, to where you can play everything online. This kind of sounds like the same, to where you'll get 15 games with Sony's own third-party titles included.
Yeah, I just included it because I know, similar to what you just mentioned about some compatibility issues with the lower tier version of Xbox, I think PlayStation may have kind of tried to get ahead on some of
Mm-hmm.
of possible compatibility issues. They see we have these games that are from PS4 that you can still play. So
Right.
yeah, I
So
just thought that was interesting to include.
yeah, yeah. So I put the list on the website, but for those who are listening, I'll go ahead and list some of them: God of War, Last of Us, Uncharted, Battlefield, Final Fantasy. You've got Resident Evil. You've got Mortal Kombat. You've got Batman: Arkham Knight. You got Ratchet and Clank. They've been around forever. So yeah, those are some of the 15 of the titles that have been remastered, revamped, and will be available on the PlayStation Plus collection that'll be available at PS5 launch. So it'll be interesting to see if that is, like you mentioned, in response to some sort of compatibility issues. Does that mean only these games for my PS4 I'll be able to play on my PS5? You know, how backward compatible is the PS5 if they've had to do this PlayStation Plus collection with only these, 12 or 15 titles? So it'll be interesting to see if that's the case, because again, everybody, all these tech brands, Microsoft, Sony, are trying to push us forward, but they don't want to forget about the people who haven't kind of moved forward. So they're trying to figure out how to that sweet spot between forcing everybody into the new age, but making sure they don't forget about people in the past as well. All right. So I think that is it for the culture. I'm sorry, for second string. Now we're going to move into for the culture, where we talk anything social media, anything that we care about that's, either social or specific to the African American culture. Speaking of which, Patti LaBelle and Gladys Knight did a VERZUZ. I don't think people saw this coming, but I definitely thought people were equally enjoyed. So I'll let Nika do the recap of the aunties VERZUZ.
So it was called all kinds of things: AuntieCon,
Okay.
Auntiechella.
Okay.
The Battle of the Aunties. I mean, it was really fun. And as you can imagine, when it first started, they had like their little setup, and they were on camera, the live had started, and they were just, talking or whatever. They didn't realize that it was actually on. They're like, "You're on." They're like, wait, it started. And they didn't realize that as soon as you walked into the frame, you were on. So, and it did, the first, maybe 20 or so minutes, it was just them catching up like, black aunties do, just, shoot the breeze, catching up. And the thing is, because people are like, so when's the music gonna start? And it was like, so who's going to interrupt these two black aunties,
Right,
and try and move them along? We're gonna sit here and get this catch up, because you don't interrupt the aunties while they're talking. So it was really a good time. They had on their full auntie regalia, Gladys Knight in her full-on sequin outfit, Miss Patti in her suit. They are both rocking, the stilettos. They look great. They look fabulous. They were, I think Gladys Knight is 77 and Patti LaBelle is 76. They looked great. They had their little setups, and Patti alluded to the fact that, the setup that she had like her Louis luggage kind of stacked. She had all of her different, heels, and she was like, this is what would what we haven't been able to perform, so I haven't had my stage. So
Right.
she kind of brought a little mini portion of what her stage setup is.
Okay.
And it was so funny, like in the middle of the battle, she had like this gold mirror, like a vanity mirror, on like the table in between them. And she would pick up her mirror, she'd check her face. If everything looked good, she put a mirror down. Then she'd check it again. If her lipstick was a little smudged, she'd take out her lipstick and, repaint her lips. She was spraying her fragrance if she kind of ran out. I mean, full on auntie mode. And it was just really, a true testament to friendship. I didn't realize they had known each other and kind of like, they kind of came up together in the industry.
Right.
But I mean, it's one thing to kind of come up with someone in the industry and then actually be friends. But
Right.
their kids knew each other. They, were with each other. I think Patti LaBelle had quite a few family members pass, and Gladys Knight was there with her. So it was really just, I think we've gone, away from the quote unquote battle aspect of verses, and it's more of the appreciation of each other's music, and that's really what it was. And
Right.
they just went through their songs, and and had a good time. It was very reminiscent. If you grew up in a black household, a lot of those songs you're used to getting up, Saturday morning, cleaning up to those songs. So
Right.
it was a really a good time. And what they did that I hadn't seen on any other battle, Gladys Knight sang all of her songs live.
Oh,
So
okay.
instead of them just playing the track, her tracks were just the instrumentals, and she
Okay.
sang
Oh, okay. All
all of
right.
her, all of her. She sang. Patti LaBelle sang as well. She had like her audio was on some of her songs,
Mm-hmm.
on her songs, but the mics were on. The
Right.
mics were hot,
Right.
and for them to be sitting down and for them to still sound like the record is really just a true testament to the talent that these ladies have,
Right. Well,
and to how well they maintained it, being in their mid to late 70s.
right.
So,
Well, I heard Patti LaBelle had some of her traditional, iconic issues with her
oh yeah.
teleprompter slash background singers.
Yes, because like because she was like, we old. She's like, these songs are old, so it seemed like the setup that they had was like they probably had monitors in front of both of them,
Mm-hmm.
and it was scrolling the words.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who did Miss Patty's setup, but they didn't have Mama's words right,
Oh
and she was
no.
talking about, and she was like, where my words at? And so on multiple different songs, she was asking where her lyrics were.
Uh huh.
And Miss Patty is from Philly.
Right.
So, she's not one to mess with. And I think her history also shows that Miss Patty will allegedly cut you if you don't have,
Oh boy.
your things together. I mean, you're talking, these older black ladies who,
Mm-hmm.
grew up in a time that were extremely sexist and racist, so they don't take a lot of junk. So yeah, and so at one point, I think she just was so upset that they didn't have her words that she was like, all right. She put her mic down. She was like, I'm not singing these songs because y'all don't have my words right.
Oh
So
boy.
you just listen to it. And so, she kind of came in and out. So I don't know if Miss Gladys had a different setup, or if she just remembered all the words or whatever.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so that was the key difference to some of the other battles is that they sang, particularly Gladys Knight sang all the songs live.
Okay.
Uh,
So let me ask, do you think like each different verses, not necessarily the production, but the actual singers or the participants, do you get the impression that they're trying to top the last verses, or this is just how they roll, or this is what they just decided to do?
I think I think it's just how they roll,
Okay.
particularly for this last one, because they're from a different era
Right.
than the previous ones where they sing and they were like, "Honey, we sing,"
Right.
and that's what they said. So I just think it's just a cultural, not a cultural, but a age type of industry type thing where they haven't performed, in 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Gladys Knight has a review in Las Vegas. So they're used to performing multiple shows, daily.
Right.
So, and they haven't been able to. So I just think that's just the way they are. They didn't have the luxury of some of the technology that the newer artists had. They
Right.
had to, if audio went out, if sound went out, they still had to be on stage and perform,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of if any of the other spectacle things were going on behind them. They needed to be able to stand on stage and sing. And, they were doing their little jigs, doing their little dance. Miss Gladys stood up a couple times and did a little quick step. Miss
Did,
Patty stood up a couple
did
times,
she
did a
do her
little quick
bird?
step.
Did you do the bird
She
flying
kicked off
thing?
her shoe. Then when she kicked off one shoe, because apparently there's this one part in her act in one particular song where she kicks her shoes off on,
Okay.
and she sang that song, and so she kicked one shoe off, then she kicked the other shoe off. Well, the other shoe came flying back and hit her in the knee, and it hurt.
Oh
And
boy.
so she was like, "Oh, the shoe hit me in the knee, so she had to kind of walk it off a little bit.
So that's funny and that's interesting, right? So actually, kind of different than what I would enjoy or where I would like to see Versus evolve. I would actually like to see less performance and more of the story or the history behind the songs. It started off with the verses, kind of like them telling the build up to the song, like T.I., not T.I., but T-Pain and who did he do it against? T-Pain against Lil Jon. That's who it was. They kind of told the story behind their songs, and then you really seeing it with Babyface and
Teddy Riley.
And Teddy, was it Teddy Riley and Babyface? Yeah, they actually, Babyface kind of told the story behind, as to how some of the songs became who. I would be much interested, especially like a Patti LaBelle and a Gladys Knight, to where they have so much history amongst themselves, and they've had so much history in the game, period, to where I would love to hear more of a anthology between, how this song became to be. You kind of, from what I, got in the replays, you could.
They did some of it.
They did some of it, right?
Bit of it, but they didn't go into probably as much detail as
right
as you would want it to be. But they did, talk about, I did this song with this person. This person wrote it. That person wrote it. We were doing this when this came up, and so they did do some of it, but they didn't go into the detail, that some of what Babyface did, because I think Babyface did a really good job of going into some of the history of how, they came about.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe they'll branch off and do a versus, because I would love for like Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis to like do something like that, because they produced, because they don't perform. They strictly write and produce.
Right.
So just to get some of the history and how, different things come together, because there's already a clip I think I saw on Twitter where Jimmy Jam breaks down Janet Jackson's I Get Lonely.
Right.
And she's singing the song, and he's kind of breaking down her voice in the song, and how, you pull these elements in and pull that element in to get this finished product. So I would, even if, they didn't do it necessarily on the versus lane of the performance aspect, if they kind of, spun off a branch and kind of did a behind the music kind of deal versus, that would be cool too.
Yeah, but I want them to be in a relaxed setting together, right? Mm-hmm. So, for instance, like Gladys Knight and, Patti LaBelle, they have history together. So it's probably easier for them, like you mentioned, them catching up, and us kind of being, fly on the wall of them catching up. It would be interesting to see their stories behind how some of these songs got made. Specifically, the reason why I say that is because one of my favorite podcasts to listen to is Drink Champs. And that is with Nori from, Component Noriega from the, the late 90s, early 2000s rap group. And he brings on all of these guests, titans in hip hop, R&B. And what's so interesting is them telling some of these stories behind some of these songs, like some of these songs that we, some of the more popular hip hop songs in the late 90s and 2000s. He brings in all these guests, and all they do is sit around and drink, which is the name of the title, but the reason behind the title of the podcast, but all they do is like tell stories. And some of the stories are amazing because we were around listening to those songs, but now you get the backstory, and it kind of does the nostalgia, and it gives you that insider of how they came in the, the DJ and the booth, and who didn't like who, and how this, person didn't like this, but they did the song, and I did this song in response to this, and you kind of see that, in some of these verses, to where I can kind of see it'd be dope to kind of get that more of an insight into the song, and then you play the song. If you want to perform it, that's cool, but I want to hear the story and then kind of play the song. So now I can connect the dots.
And especially, thinking of Patti and Gladys Knight, back in the 60s, just, everything that it took for them to even, be artists, like what was, some rationale, behind, songs that got played or songs they wanted to put on,
right,
but couldn't because of specific cultural or social or, civil rights.
Or just industry issues.
Or just access.
Right.
Yeah.
You're just industry issues, right? Because a lot of us, I can sing, let me be an actress. I mean, a singer rather. But there's more industry issues, and I think right. And it'd be interesting to get that kind of insight, from an outside looking in. So it'd be nice to see them evolve that way. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and I don't really want to talk about this next one because it's like I kind of knew that was happening.
You can skip it because it's honestly on Twitter it's just the worst, and a lot of people are putting blame on her when he is really the person that was for the streets. Yeah.
So for those who haven't figured it out, Cardi B has filed for divorce from her husband / baby daddy / hip hop guy Offset from the Migos. And I mean, if you didn't see that coming, I mean, it was a lot going on, right? So again, like Nika was saying, it's like, divorce, especially in public. I can imagine getting divorced, just me getting divorced, my little bit of circle of people knowing. You add Superstar on top of that, and then you add all the other drama that went along with their relationship. It's probably a big mess coming. And then the internet is not helping, to say the least.
It's not. It's horrible. Yeah. And I just really...
Yeah. So
sometimes men can really not be nice.
Yeah. Especially...
And I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, and especially people not even involved. But all right, so we'll keep it moving. So that's it for the culture for this week. We're moving to the hookup. One of the things that I didn't mention with the iOS 14 announcement that I thought was pretty interesting was the fact that you can actually set up specific functions if you do it this way. Tap the back of your iPhone. So you actually, if you go into settings, go into accessibility, and then go into touch, and then go into back tap, you can actually do a double tap or a triple tap to actually do certain functions, like open the camera, like do the shake to undo. Like I do this a lot. If I, type something and actually delete it, I normally just shake my phone, which I make sure to grip it so I don't throw it on the floor. Right. But I can actually set up a back tap to tap it 2 times and it'll actually do an undo so I can get that writing back. You can do it all types of things, like to open up like I mentioned, open up the camera, like start some shortcuts. So if you use the iOS shortcuts, you can actually do a double tap. So I thought this was cool, right? So there is a popular shortcut that's going around to where if you're pulled over, you can actually do a shortcut to say, hey, I'm getting pulled over, and it'll start all these functions. Start the video, it'll track your location, it can send a message to whomever you want to let them know, hey, I'm being pulled over by the police, all these different functions. Well, I can actually set up a back tap to where a double or triple tap to where if I'm getting pulled over, it'll then fire off that shortcut. So definitely take a look at that. That's one of the cooler features. I haven't tried that out yet. I want to sit there and actually think of a function that I do all the time to where I actually can do that double tap or triple tap to where to do that function faster. So definitely take a look at that. That is my hookup for this week. If you don't have anything else for the hookup, I think that's going to do it for this week's show. Definitely you can download, rate, and review us. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Google Podcasts, we're on Spotify. If you want to engage with us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, you can find us at snobOScast. You can watch us on YouTube. We put this show up when the actual podcast airs on YouTube. You can look us up at snobOScast. Make sure you do all the YouTube things, like the video, subscribe to the channel, do the notifications, do all that good stuff. If you want to leave comments and suggestions, you can do so on the website. We're at snobOScast.com, or you can shoot us an email, snobOScast@gmail.com. Finally, you can support the show if you love what you're doing, if you like to watch it, if you want to watch it live, if you want to help us out with selecting videos or selecting topics, if you want to help us select titles. Definitely, you can become a Patreon. You can find us at patreon.com/snobOScast. $5 a month, give you access to the pre-show, give you access to the live show, give you access to our Discord chat. Other than that, I think that is it this week. We will see you. See you next week. Peace.
Bye.